Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with Liberty Hill Comics. We got another mail call. This is a modern book, and it's a slab. And we're going to talk a lot of market analysis today. This being a modern book, there's actually a lot of variants of this book. And we're going to talk about all of them today a little bit. And whether or not there's a buying opportunity today in this market. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Dr. Paul Kosnick. I have 40 years experience collecting comics, and I like to share my experience and my passion for comics, comic book conservation, and personal finance with you here on the channel. So what we're doing today is an unboxing and market report for this book. Wow. That is fabulous looking. All right, what is it and why do we care? Why does it look so gorgeous? J. Scott Campbell is kind of a genius. Love this book. Well, this is obviously Strange Academy #1. This is the J. Scott Campbell variant. This is cover dated May 2020, which means it dropped in March of 2020, just days before the pandemic shut most comic book shops in the United States and in many other parts of the free world down. It is the first appearance of Emily Bright, Doyle Dormammu, Shaylee Moonpeddle, Calvin Morse, Dessy, German, Guslaug, Zoe, Alvi, Iric, and Toth. It was written by Scottie Young. Yup, that Scottie Young, the one that does the Marvel baby covers. And illustrated by Humberto Ramos, who also did the cover A and a few other variants. I really like Humberto Ramos art, and I didn't go with the Ramos cover A here. I'll explain why in a little bit. But Ramos does the interior art. He's got 2 main variants, and then there are second and other late printings based on his variants. And in fact, Scottie Young contributes 2 cover variants as well. So interestingly, between the writer and the interior artist, I think there are about 7, 8, 9 of the variant covers. I'm not aware of any other book where the writer contributed 2 different variant covers and the interior artist contributed 4 or 5. So it's pretty interesting in that regard. This book came out of the gates pretty hot as a potential MCU take on Harry Potter, and I think with very good reason. The first issue introduces us to some really fun characters and sets up some interesting team dynamics that should make for good storytelling long term, and I think that's held up. It's a very popular book. Many people say this is one of their favorite reads in Marvel Comics today. Fair market values of this book steadily climbed through the pandemic, but like most things, the price has fallen off as the FOMC has raised interest rates to cut inflation. By the way, comic books were one of the assets that had suffered from considerable inflation during the last 2 years. So the Fed, in my opinion, has done a great job creating deflationary pressure on my favorite asset class, which is comic books. I am a bit confused why someone would be happy that the price of gas is coming back down, but angry that the price of comics is coming down. For me, I'm happy the price of comics are coming down because that means they're on sale. And I love comic books. I love buying things on sale. So I'm happy right now. I think rather than claiming that the sky is falling, let's just recognize that the comic book market is linked to other asset classes and that when the Fed is fighting inflation by hiking interest rates, that is going to affect comic books and comic book prices. On the whole, you should probably be a net buyer when the Fed is hiking interest rates and a net seller when the Fed is cutting rates. I think a lot of the anger in the comic book community right now is that not enough people sold when we had a great bull market, and they're angry now that they can't get the prices that they could have realized if they had sold during that bull market. Learn that lesson, and learn the lesson that savvy stock traders learned over the last few decades. Don't fight the Fed. Before we talk market analysis for this book, we have to talk about variants. This being a modern book published in the time of variants, We may one day look back on this age and call it the variant age. There are lots of different covers for this book. There are 13 different variants of this book, cover dated May 2020, which was the official publication date. There's an additional variant published the following month in June, and 4 more variants published in October 2020, and then 2 additional variants published January of 2021. All told, that means there are 20 different variants of this book so far, and Marvel could publish more. I've listed them here with the CGC Census population and 9.8 fair market values. As you can see, that means there are a total of over 12,000 copies of this Slabbed at CGC alone, which means this is not a rare book, and if you want to find something not everyone has, you need to look a little deeper than the cover A. Fair warning, some of these books don't change hands very often, and with the volatility in the market, some of these fair market values may change dramatically with just one sale. With that caveat out of the way, let's discuss the significant variants. First up, it's cover A. It's a great cover by Ramos featuring the entire team, which I think is very important for modern first appearances that are likely to be displayed slabbed. It's by far the most plentiful variant, with over 3,000 in the census and a fair market value of about $250. I think this is a good choice long term, but I'm a bit concerned about the supply and whether or not it still has room to fall. For this reason, I'm not a buyer of the cover A at this price. Next up is this book, the Campbell variant, with about 1,300 in the census, fewer than half of the cover A, and a fair market value of $110. The Campbell variant has much lower supply, an equally or perhaps more loved artist than the cover A, and trades at a significant discount to the cover A. This was also an open order cover, so it's by no means rare, but I like the price point here, so I'm bullish on the Campbell variant at $110, and we'll revisit that in a little bit. There are several comic shop exclusives. Some of them are relatively low census count, but although supply is low, demand generally also tends to be low for shop exclusives unless they really hit it out of the park with just the right artist and subject and the rarity. For this book, the closest to capturing that genie in a bottle is the Comic Mint Cover B exclusive, which was limited to 600 copies. While it's a Peach Momoko cover, it features Magic, who is very popular, but it doesn't feature the Strange Academy students. So it's a first appearance, but not a first cover for the students. Couple that with the fact that it has a fair market value of over $1,000, and I'm definitely not a buyer here. The Arthur Adams variant is only slightly better in my opinion. Again, great artist, very popular, but it only has one of the new students, Emily Bright, on the cover. I want my first appearance team book to have all the team members on the cover, so as much as I love Art Adams' work and Peach Momoko's, I'm passing on both these books at these price points. The big dogs among the variants are the ratio variants. The Humberto Ramos 1 in 25 with a census count of 650 and a fair market value of $375, and the Opeña 1 in 50 with a census of 432 and a fair market value of $1,300. Again, fair warning, there are very few sales of that book. It hasn't changed hands very often lately, so it's unclear if that's a true fair market price. In the current market, with the volatility we're experiencing, we could have one sale that could change our view of the fair market value of this book. I like both of these ratio variants for investment potential, especially the Opeña, if this market volatility can provide a low entry point of under, say, $1,000. There are some other store variants with very low census numbers, including a Virgin variant of this Campbell cover. And if those are your cup of tea, now is probably as good a time as any to pick them up. I recommend being patient and waiting for an auction and or making an offer on a buy it now book around recent auction closing prices. Be aware that store variants are fun to hunt and display, but most of them have not historically held up as long-term holds. So buy what you like, and then you'll never be sad about what it's worth in the end. The other dark horse that I think is worth looking at is the 5th printing. It features a monochrome version of the Ramos variant cover and has a relatively small census at only 265, but it only sells for $55. That happens to be the variant that Mr. Longshort favors for speculation, and I agree, if you want a low buy-in, that one may have the most upside of all the variants. For this eBay purchase, I had the winning bid at just over $100. In fact, I've purchased 3 copies of this book in the last 2 weeks for between $100 and $107. I'm comfortable with a $100 buy-in on what I believe will be a long-term investment and speculation book, and the Campbell variant is the one that has the best value of all the variants that are published by Marvel, in my opinion. If when this property takes off, the cover A will rise, and I'm betting that this cover will rise at a greater rate and close the gap to the cover A over time. Only time will tell if I'm correct. What do you think? Am I early? Is it going down from here? Anyone else willing to call a bottom with me right here at $100? I hope you enjoyed this unboxing video and the market report for all the variants of Strange Academy #1, the first appearance of Strange Academy and a whole slew of new fun students. The current bear market has brought these comics back down into early pandemic price levels, and it looks to me like it's time to start buying. Pick whatever variant appeals to you, because if you love it, you can't go wrong. Until next time, happy hunting and take care of one another.